Today I'm going to be talking about Hispanic artists and religious expression. It is well known that as a country, Spain is overtly Catholic. According to worldatlas.com, under the Spanish Constitution, the freedom to practice religion is a guaranteed right. Although there is no official state religion, the government and taxpayers allocate some financial resources to the Catholic Church. Between 70 and 75% of the Spanish population identify as Roman Catholic Christians. The Christian religion has had a notable presence in Spain since the days that religion was part of the Roman Empire. However, an Arab invasion in 711 AD left Islam as the ruling force and most widely practiced religion until the year 1492 AD, after which, and until present day, Catholicism has been the major religion in Spain. Due to this overwhelmingly powerful religious influence on the country's citizens, it is not surprising that over the decades, many artists of various modes have expressed their religious ideals in their respective mediums, but not all artists accepted Catholicism. In fact, some even chastised the church and rejected Christianity. Today I will be talking about three Spanish artists who have greatly influenced Spain with their religious works in painting, architecture, and literature. All three masters, Salvador Dalí, Antoni Gaudí, and Federico Garcia Lorca, have inspired generations with their religious works. Starting with Dalí. Salvador Dalí is best known for his surrealist works incorporating Freudian dream imagery, such as his famous 1931 painting, The Persistence of Memory, involving melting clocks. Born in Figueres, Catalonia, Spain, in 1904, to a devout Catholic mother and staunch atheist father, Dalí was religiously conflicted from a young age, making him stand out from many of the other artistic masters. According to biography.com, Dalí was frequently abused by his father. He was raised atheist, but as his relationship with his father deteriorated, he found religion and the Catholic Church and began his religious expression in 1942. Dalí's return to Christian imagery and traditional values was influenced by three major factors: the devastating effects of the Spanish Civil War and World War II, his reawakened interest in classical art, and his reappraisal of Freud's psychological principles after meeting the psychoanalyst in 1938. Dalí's The Sacrament of the Last Supper. According to the National Gallery of Art, Dalí's The Sacrament of the Last Supper was given to the National Gallery by one of its greatest benefactors, Chester Dale, who donated more than 300 works of art to the museum. Dale repeatedly suggested the subject matter, and he purchased Dalí's self-proclaimed masterpiece as soon as it was finished. He then sent it to the National Gallery, where it was placed on public view the day before Easter in 1956. Completed in 1955, it is a symbolic representation of the Eucharistic ritual. God is not corporally present because his body is partially transparent. Christ rests below the hovering figure, pointing upward toward the floating torso. The apostles appear to be praying as they are crouched down around the table. On the table rest bread and wine, symbolizing the actual sacrament and the body and blood of Christ. In the background is a familiar landscape of Catalonia, which Dalí included in many of his paintings. I chose this painting simply because I think that it is a great representation of Dalí's transition and conversion into Catholicism. Additionally, I think that when people typically think of a painting of the Last Supper, they think of Da Vinci's The Last Supper, which I do believe is a beautiful painting. However, I believe that this painting, Dalí's, is more hopeful. As you can see, the realistic figures of Christ and his apostles seem very somber and respectful, and it's almost as if they know it's the Last Supper, whereas Christ appears like he knows that this isn't the end. He's pointing up, he looks hopeful, he's pointing to God, and the light in the background really emphasizes the hopefulness of this image, and it really embodies his surrealist background as well, with that floating torso, so it's bringing together the realism and the surrealism. Moving on to architecture. Another artistic master who participated in religious expression is Antoni Gaudí. According to BarcelonaLife.com, Gaudí was born in Catalonia, Spain in 1852. He became one of the greatest architects of all time with his trademark innovative and organic style and use of brightly colored materials, such as his tile mosaics. His unique style is most recognizable in his construction of Casa Batlló and Casa Milà. His work was first recognized at the Paris World Fair of 1878, and in 1883 Gaudí was commissioned with the task of constructing La Sagrada Familia Basilica. The plans had been drawn up earlier, and construction had already begun, but Gaudí completely changed the design, stamping it with his own distinctive style. Gaudí was Catholic his entire life, but his religiosity increased with age. In 1910, Gaudí became increasingly pious and devoted his remaining years to completing Sagrada Familia. He even cloistered himself in the basement of the basilica while it was being constructed. Gaudí died in 1926 after he suffered injuries from being hit by a street trolley, and the basilica remains unfinished. It is said to be completed in 2026. As noted in sagradafamilia.org, Gaudí's conception of the Sagrada Familia was based on the traditions of Gothic and Byzantine cathedrals. His intention was to express Christian belief through the architecture and the beauty of the building and communicate the message of the evangelists. The various architectural elements are embowed with hierarchical organized Christian symbolism. Thus, each of the 18 towers has a special significance. In the middle is a tower dedicated to Christ, and around it are 4 towers representing the Gospels. The tower above the apse, crowned with a star, represents his mother, the Virgin Mary, with the remaining 12 towers representing the 12 apostles. The life and teachings of Jesus are represented on the 3 facades. Each one represents one of the 3 crucial events of Christ's existence: his birth, his passion, his death, and resurrection. From wherever they are seen, once finished, these 18 towers will be an extraordinary sight and provide a sense of elevation to the central tower dedicated to Christ. Overall, the building was designed to look as if it is reaching toward heaven. Inside, one can find that it is extremely light, as Gaudí intended for luminosity of natural lighting. There are many windows, frequently adorned with stained glass. I chose this building simply because it probably is Gaudí's most well-known work. It's an incredible building. The sheer size of it is just unbelievable, and I think it definitely demonstrates his religious expression, as he cloistered himself in the basement for several years, just trying to complete it. And the fact that he was so dedicated and didn't even get to see it completed is incredibly sad and astonishing, really. So I'm looking forward to seeing its completion in 2026, and hopefully it's something that Gaudí would have been proud of. On to literature and Federico Garcia Lorca. As Poets.org notes, Lorca was born in Fuente Vaquero, Spain in 1898 to a father who was a farmer and mother who was a pianist. He was religiously influenced early on, as were most children in Spain during this time. He went to university and studied law, then decided to quit school and devote himself entirely to his art. He published several books of poetry throughout his lifetime that focus on religion, sexuality, and society. He was murdered by soldiers during the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War in 1936, presumably at Franco's command. His body has never been discovered. According to the scholarly article, Roots of Religious Crisis, Garcia Lorca, and El Libro de Poemas, it is well noted that Lorca struggled with sexuality from an early age, and thus struggled with his faith in Catholicism. According to NewYorkTimes.com, many of his early poems cite his hatred for a Christian God, and yet he heavily identifies with Christ and his persecution. The website also notes the relationship that Lorca had with Salvador Dali. They were friends and remained so despite Lorca's sexual desire for the surrealist painter. Both poet and painter had a significant influence on one another. And in 1927, Lorca suffered a religious crisis as a result of conflicts from his youth and eventually completely rejected religion. His book, Libro de Poemas, was published in 1921 and contained several anti-religious poems. Frequently, Lorca expressed his anti-religious feelings through metaphors involving animals and nature. This is exactly what he did in Ditty of First Desire, or Conciencia del Primer Beso, published in Canciones, 1921 to 1924. I've included both the original Spanish version and the English translation in this presentation for anyone who is interested, and both were found at poemfortoday.com. When I first read this poem, I thought that it was more about self-love and confidence than reciprocation of someone else's love because of the parentheses used in the third stanza of the poem when the speaker addresses his soul. This deliberate use of punctuation made me think that this is an afterthought, or almost like the speaker is unsure about the idea. The lines are repeated in the sixth and final stanza, however, they do not contain parentheses, making me think that the speaker has found his self-love and confidence. Now that I'm rereading the poem, and given its publication time frame and all of the background that I now know about Lorca, I think that this poem could easily be about Lorca's lack of self-acceptance, as well as the church's lack of acceptance towards homosexuals. To clarify, I believe that this poem is still about finding self-love and acceptance of self, but I think that it stems from the Catholic Church's rejection and persecution of homosexuals throughout history. It seems as if in this poem, Lorca is explaining that because of Catholicism, he is forced to be something that he is not, presumably a heterosexual man. I think that this poem greatly embodies Lorca's struggle with his own sexuality, as well as his struggle with the church's rejection of who he is. So it's pretty short, but I think you can greatly feel the pain and suffering that he's trying to convey in this. So I'll give you a quick reading. In the green morning, I wanted to be a heart, and in the ripe evening, I wanted to be a nightingale. Soul, turn orange-colored, soul, turn the color of love. In the vivid morning, I wanted to be myself, a heart, and at the evening's end, I wanted to be my voice, a nightingale. Soul, turn orange-colored, soul, turn the color of love. And that was my works cited. And overall, all three of these masters have been influenced and have influenced through religious expression. While Dalí found religion and Gaudí became more devout, Lorca struggled with and rejected Catholicism. Despite these differences, in each of their journeys, all three artists embody the culture and religion of Spain through the various modes of artistic and religious expression.